The stale air of the pawnshop stung Max's nostrils, a far cry from the heady scent of anticipation that once filled the grand theaters where he'd performed. Dust motes danced in the weak shaft of sunlight filtering through the grime-coated window, illuminating the sad collection of tarnished trophies lining the shelves, remnants of a magic career long gone. A crumpled envelope sat innocuously on the counter. It wasn't addressed, but Max knew the sender. The Raven, his old mentor, a man as elusive as the creature he was named after, and as notorious for his art heists as Max was once celebrated for his illusions. Max's fingers trembled slightly as he tore open the envelope. Inside, a single playing card, the Queen of Spades. On its back, scrawled in spidery script, "The Cheshire Cat calls. Kensington Gala. Midnight. Winner takes all." A sardonic chuckle escaped his lips. The Cheshire Cat Diamond. A legendary gem rumored to grant the bearer a single, extraordinary wish. Max hadn't believed in fairy tales since he was 8, and his rabbit disappeared without a puff of smoke. But a hefty cut of a heist involving a diamond with such a reputation? That, he could believe in. He straightened his rumpled suit, a flicker of his old spark igniting in his eyes. Maybe this wasn't the dead end he thought his life had become. Maybe, just maybe, the Raven had offered him a chance to pull off the greatest illusion of all, a comeback. Max knew he needed a team for this caper. He had the misdirection down pat, but he needed someone to handle the tech and someone with the grace to navigate the tight security. Jax was the first on his list. Max found him in a dimly lit alley, hunched over a laptop with wires snaking into the guts of an ATM. "Hey, Jackal," Max called out. "Got a new trick for you." Jax looked up, a smirk playing on his lips as he recognized the old-school charm in Max's voice. "The Raven's got a job for us, and it's bigger than the last 10 we've turned down combined." The hacker's eyes lit up like a Christmas tree at the mention of the infamous thief. Next was Valentina. Max had seen her perform at the Olympics before the scandal. Her grace and precision had been unparalleled. Now, she taught gymnastics to rich kids at an exclusive gym, a shadow of her former self. He approached her with the same card, and her eyes narrowed at the sight of it. "I'm in," she said, with a steely resolve that made Max grin. The trio spent weeks meticulously planning the heist. They studied the museum's blueprints, memorized the security patterns, and rehearsed their roles until they could execute the plan in their sleep. Max's mind buzzed with excitement, conjuring up distractions and sleights of hand that would make Houdini proud. Jax worked his digital magic, crafting a program to disable the laser grid surrounding the diamond's case, while Valentina practiced her daring leap over the alarmed barricade. The night of the gala arrived, and the Kensington Museum was a sea of tuxedos and diamond necklaces. Max, dressed as a caterer, melded into the background, his eyes scanning the room for the perfect moment. Jax, hidden in a janitorial closet, had eyes on the security monitors. And Valentina, a vision in a shimmering gown, mingled with the elite, waiting for her cue. The air was thick with tension as the clock ticked closer to midnight. This was it. The grand illusion was about to begin. Max's heart raced as he palmed the modified flashbang. The Raven's message had been clear: make it look like a professional job, but leave no trace of who was really behind it. He waited for the moment when the room was the most crowded, when the distraction would be the most effective. The lights dimmed, and the museum director took the podium. Max nodded to Valentina, who gave a subtle nod back. She slipped away from the crowd, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. Jax's voice crackled in Max's earpiece. "I've got control. 10 seconds till the grid goes down." Max took a deep breath and lobbed the smoke bomb into the center of the room. It hit the floor with a muffled thud and erupted into a cloud of thick, opaque smoke. Chaos ensued as the well-heeled patrons coughed and stumbled away from the billowing cloud. Valentina's moment had arrived. She sprinted towards the display case, her gymnast's body coiled like a spring. The laser grid flickered off just as she leaped, a human projectile hurtling through the air. She somersaulted over the barricade and stuck the landing with cat-like grace. Her gloved hand reached for the diamond, but just as her fingertips brushed the cool glass, a figure emerged from the smoke. A detective specializing in art crimes, known for his uncanny instincts, had suspected something was amiss and had been watching the case all night. His eyes locked onto Valentina, and she froze, the diamond's gleam reflecting in her wide eyes. The detective was young, sharp, and clearly not fooled by the smoke screen. "Hold it right there," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Max and Jax watched in horror from their vantage points. The plan was falling apart. They had to think fast. Max palmed a small device from his pocket and flicked it on. The room plunged into darkness as the lights flickered and died. In the confusion, Valentina managed to snatch the diamond and slip away, melting into the shadows like a ghost. The team regrouped in the alley outside, panting and adrenaline-fueled. They had the diamond, but as they examined it in the dim light of Jax's phone, they realized it was a fake. The realization hit Max like a ton of bricks. "The Raven," he murmured. "He played us." The twinkle in Jax's eye suggested he was already several steps ahead. "Looks like we've got a new act to follow," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "And it's gonna be a doozy." The trio huddled around the blueprints spread out on the hood of their getaway car, their minds racing. The Raven's true motive had to be something bigger, something he needed the chaos of the diamond heist to distract from. Max's eyes scanned the map, looking for any clue that might lead them to the real treasure. Valentina's gaze fell on a small, almost imperceptible detail, a chamber marked on the original blueprints but not on the ones they'd stolen. "There," she said, pointing to a spot behind the grand staircase. "That's where we'll find him." They raced back into the museum, dodging the panicked guards and confused partygoers. The air was still thick with the smell of burnt wire and smoke from the smoke bomb. The chaos had become their ally as they blended in with the fleeing crowd. They slipped into the chamber, a space no larger than a broom closet, and found themselves in a labyrinth of forgotten storerooms and secret passageways. Max felt the rush of the hunt as they followed the breadcrumbs of the Raven's deception. His heart pounded in his chest as they climbed a dusty staircase, the walls adorned with the shadows of forgotten artifacts. They emerged into a chamber that seemed to have been untouched by time. There, bathed in the soft glow of emergency lights, stood the Raven, his silhouette framed by a glass case holding a priceless artifact, the scepter of Cleopatra. He turned to face them, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "I knew you'd figure it out," he said, his voice a smooth purr. "But did you think you could outfox me?" The room grew tense as the two men stared each other down, the air charged with the electricity of a silent challenge. Max knew this was more than just a heist. It was a test, a final lesson from his mentor. "I might not believe in magic," Max said, "but I've always had a knack for making things disappear." The Raven chuckled, his eyes gleaming with respect. "So you've learned," he said, placing the scepter into a velvet-lined bag. "But I think it's time for a new trick. One that doesn't end with us on opposite sides of the law." The detective, who had been tailing them, stepped into the room. The Raven handed him the bag with a flourish. "Your move, magician," he said, stepping aside. Max looked at his team, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. They had the skills to outsmart the best, but could they pull off a heist that didn't just benefit themselves? He took the bag, feeling the scepter's cool weight. "We're not thieves," he announced to the room. "We're something else." The detective's eyes narrowed, the beginnings of understanding dawning on his face. "You're returning it?" "No," Max said, a newfound confidence in his voice. "We're going to make sure it gets to where it truly belongs." The Raven's smile grew wider, and he nodded. "Welcome to the stage, my dear students," he said, disappearing into the shadows. "The real magic is just beginning." Max looked at Jax and Valentina, their eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and excitement. They had a decision to make, and they had to make it fast. They could either hand over the scepter to the detective and face the consequences, or they could follow through with the Raven's unspoken challenge and become the heroes of their own story. Jax spoke up first, his eyes alight with the thrill of the unknown. "Let's do it," he said, cracking his knuckles. "We've got the skills. We can pull this off." Valentina nodded, her gaze steely. We're not just thieves, she echoed Max's words. We're the ones who make sure the trick isn't on the innocent. The detective, now more curious than suspicious, studied the trio. All right, he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. But you're going to need my help. The four of them worked together, using their unique talents to navigate the museum's inner workings. They slipped past guards and dodged laser beams with the grace of seasoned acrobats. The detective's knowledge of the museum's security was invaluable, and together they moved like a well-oiled machine. As they approached the artifact's intended resting place, Max noticed something peculiar. The case was empty. The Raven had set them up again. But this time, it wasn't to frame them for theft. It was to show them that the true treasure was their ability to come together and outwit the most ingenious of opponents. The real scepter had been in the detective's possession all along, a masterful sleight of hand that even Max hadn't seen coming. The Raven never wanted the diamond, the detective said, holding up the bag with the fake diamond. He wanted you to see the bigger picture. Max looked at the detective, realizing that he was the Raven's confidant. What's the plan? He asked, the thrill of the chase still coursing through his veins. The detective, now revealed as their ally, handed Max the real scepter. We're going to give it back to its rightful owner, he said, and expose the corruption that's been hiding in plain sight. The four of them left the museum, the night air cool on their flushed faces. They had become more than a team, they were a force to be reckoned with. Max knew that this was only the beginning of their adventures. They had the power to rewrite their destinies, to become the heroes they were always meant to be. As they drove away, the city lights twinkling like a sea of stars, Max felt the weight of his past lifting. He had found his new stage, and he was ready to perform the greatest trick of his life. The heist of the Cheshire Cat Diamond had turned into something much more, a rebirth of the Magician, the Jackal, and the Valkyrie. They were no longer just a team of misfits. They were the guardians of lost artifacts, the ethical heisters that would leave their mark on the world of art. The sirens grew distant as they disappeared into the night, the promise of a new chapter echoing in their ears. They had the world at their fingertips, and they were going to make sure that the real magic stayed out of the wrong hands. In the back seat, Valentina held the scepter like it was a piece of her own lost glory, her eyes gleaming with determination. Jax's fingers danced over his phone, already piecing together the puzzle of their next move. And Max? Max was driving, the wind in his hair, feeling more alive than he had in years. They had to find the real buyer before dawn broke, before the city woke up to the news of the stolen artifact. The Raven's clues had led them to a warehouse on the outskirts of town, a place where the elite traded in history's secrets. It was a game of cat and mouse, but this time, they were the cats. The warehouse was a fortress of shadows, the only light coming from the flickering neon sign outside. Max parked the car in a nearby alley, and they approached on foot. The detective, whose name was revealed to be Daniel, took the lead, his badge flashing a warning to any guards that might be watching. The door was unlocked, a silent invitation to the dance of deception that awaited them. Inside, they found a treasure trove of stolen artifacts, each one whispering a story of greed and betrayal. The air was thick with the scent of dust and the weight of untold secrets. Jax hacked into the warehouse's security system, turning the tables on their adversaries. Cameras switched off, alarms silenced, they moved like ghosts through the aisles of plundered history. Max's heart hammered in his chest as he saw the case that once held the scepter of Cleopatra. It was open, the velvet lining a stark contrast to the cold metal of the scepter in Valentina's grasp. They found the buyer in the back, surrounded by his entourage of thugs. He was a man with a taste for the macabre, his office a shrine to the darker side of human desire. Max stepped into the light, the scepter glinting in his hand. "Looking for this?" he said, his voice a blend of amusement and challenge. The buyer's face went from smug to furious in an instant. "You're the ones who took it," he snarled. "You're dead." But Max had a trick up his sleeve. He tossed the scepter to Daniel, who caught it with a dramatic flourish. "This isn't a heist," Max said, his voice echoing through the cavernous space. This is a return to sender. The room went still as Daniel announced their intentions. They were here to take down the black market for stolen artifacts, one greedy collector at a time. The buyer's goons looked uncertain, and Max could see the fear in the buyer's eyes. The detective stepped forward, his voice a calm in the storm. "You're under arrest," he said, slapping the cuffs on the buyer's wrists. "For the theft of priceless artifacts and the corruption of history." The buyer's bluster disappeared, leaving only a pathetic man in an expensive suit. Max couldn't help but feel a smug satisfaction as they watched him being led away. As they exited the warehouse, the first light of dawn breaking over the city, they knew they had set something in motion that couldn't be stopped. They had started a revolution in the shadows, a quest to reclaim the lost treasures of the world. They were no longer just Max, Jax, and Valentina. They were the Magician, the Jackal, and the Valkyrie, the ethical heisters with a score to settle. And with each artifact they returned, each greedy collector they brought to justice, they would become the legends they were always meant to be. The story of the Cheshire Cat Diamond had been the catalyst for their transformation, but it was just the beginning of their grand adventure. The city was their stage, and the world their playground. And as the sun rose, they disappeared into the early morning light, ready to write the next thrilling chapter of their lives. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing to stay updated with our latest stories, give us a like if you want to see more, and drop a comment below to let us know your thoughts.